This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. President Donald Trump announced today he is declaring a national emergency, which will free up funds to build a wall along the border with Mexico. Our Mark Martin is in the CBN newsroom with more. Mark, what's the latest?
George, during his announcement, the president said we fight wars overseas, but we don't control our own border. He also called the arguments against a border wall, that drugs all come through the port of entry and that walls don't work, lies. Trump cited examples of successful border walls in El Paso and in Israel and said walls work 100%. Democrats might have thought they had blocked the president's drive to finally build a wall on the Mexican border, but the president had different plans after announcing Thursday that Trump would sign a border security compromise that gave him only $1.4 billion for a wall. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell added a surprise announcement that the president would also be issuing a national emergency declaration at the same time. The plan would allow the White House to move $8 billion from various federal agencies to fund the wall. The Associated Press said that figure involves combining the money approved by Congress with funds that he plans to repurpose through executive actions, including the national emergency. Democrats call it a lawless act and a gross abuse of power, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi answered with a veiled threat that such a precedent could come back to haunt conservatives. That did not stop the president, who made his announcement from the Rose Garden today, saying the southern border was dealing with an invasion.
I'm going to be signing a national emergency, and it's been signed many times before. It's been signed by other presidents. From 1977 or so, it gave the presidents the power. There's rarely been a problem. They sign it. Nobody cares. I guess they weren't very exciting, but nobody cares. They sign it for far less important things in some cases, in many cases. We're talking about an invasion of our country with drugs, with human traffickers, with all types of criminals and gangs.
The president said it's now up to the courts to determine the constitutionality of the national emergency, and he added that he expects to be sued. But George Trump said he believes his team will be, quote, very successful in court. Back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Joining us for more on the president's declaration is John Malcolm, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. John, thanks for being with us. So Democrats are calling the move unconstitutional. Is that true?
No, I don't think so. So Congress has actually delegated to the president rather broad authority under the National Emergencies Act. So today he's invoked that authority. So what the president now has to do is to send to Congress the declaration and to say what other statutes that he is relying upon to take these funds to do what it is that he wants to do. He's cited 3 different laws. One of them has to do with the Treasury Department's asset forfeiture fund. Another has to do with the statute which deals with military construction projects. And another has to do with the Department of Defense fund for drug interdiction efforts. So those statutory authority exists. I believe he's on fairly solid ground.
John, what do you think the next move from the Democrats is going to be?
Well, they're going to introduce a resolution to try to get this national emergency declaration nullified. I think they're going to fail at that. The votes just aren't there. And then somebody is going to file a lawsuit challenging this. It could be the House of Representatives. It could be a private property owner whose property is going to be seized under eminent domain along the border to build this wall. They'll file a lawsuit in a federal district court, probably in California, because California is within the Ninth Circuit. Texas is within the more conservative Fifth Circuit, and they'll try to get a judge to issue a nationwide injunction to prohibit the president from doing what he wants to do.
Is there a downside to declaring this as a national emergency?
Well, I think it's regrettable that Congress didn't work with the president to try to accomplish this. A number of Democrats were on record in 2006 when they passed the Safe Fences Act, saying that there was a need for a wall along the southern border or some kind of a barrier. The situation hasn't gotten any better along the southern border over that time. But because this president is the one doing the asking, they've proven to be rather intransigent. So there's a certain amount of uncertainty as to whether or not he's going to ultimately be able to do this. But as I say, I think at the end of the day, he'll be successful. Every invocation of authority by a president sets some kind of a precedent. Some people are afraid about what a future president might do by declaring a national emergency. But of course, there are statutes in place that to some degree limit a president's ability to declare a national emergency against, say, climate warming or, firearm possession or something like that.
And that was actually Ms. Pelosi's point yesterday, right before the announcement today, that, if there was another president of another party, he could invoke the same powers, be it on the issue of gun violence or climate change, right?
Well, but again, the National Emergencies Act, all that does is provide a vehicle for the president to do this. He has to rely on other laws in order to take these appropriated funds and divert it for the purposes of building a wall. And the president has cited now these 3 other laws that allow him to do this. I'm aware of no other federal law that would allow a president to divert funds for, say, military purposes in order to combat climate change.
Yeah. Okay, terrific. John, thank you so much for your insights. Please come back again here on the CBN News channel.
Good to be with you.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy told CBN News he backs the president's move to declare a national emergency to fund the border wall. McCarthy says the president is within his rights to make this move, although it's almost certain to face a lengthy legal challenge from Democrats.
There is a national emergency along this border, and the president has the right to do that. He wants to get, if you listen to the experts, and that's what this does, if you listen to the experts, they need about a little over 200 more miles of wall. It's not sea to shining sea. It's in the areas where we have our biggest problems.
Mr. McCarthy feels confident they will be able to get the wall built. By the way, our team in D.C. will have more from our nation's capital on tonight's Faith Nation. You can catch that right here on the CBN News channel. In other news, a Kentucky diocese investigation involving Catholic high school students and Native American activists has found that the students did not instigate the incident. On January 18th, students from Covington Catholic School were seen chanting, you can see the video there, and laughing at Native American Nathan Phillips during a March for Life rally. The incident was shared on social media and went viral very quickly. The students, including Nick Sandman, were condemned for their actions. But both Sandman and Phillips say they were trying to calm the situation between their groups and a third group affiliated with the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. The investigation said it found no evidence of offensive or racist comments. Anne Graham Lotz, daughter of the late Reverend Billy Graham, posted a picture of herself on Instagram. It's with her daughters following the latest round of chemotherapy in her battle against breast cancer. She says she is thankful for all the prayers. She wrote, quote, "My beautiful daughters have been by my side every time. In a month, I will begin 4 weeks of daily radiation while continuing 1 infusion every 3 weeks until October. This was the 7th dip in the Jordan, praising God by all faith that all is well." We will continue to pray for Miss Anne. UK doctors, meanwhile, successfully operated on an unborn baby and put her back in her mother's womb after detecting a spinal deformity called spina bifida at just 24 weeks gestation. Bethany Simpson wrote on her Facebook page, "We were offered continuing pregnancy, ending pregnancy, or a new option called fetal surgery, fixing her before she is born. We had to do it." She went on to post, "Sadly, 80% of babies in England are terminated when their parents get told their baby has this condition. It is not a death sentence," she wrote. "She has the same potential as every one of us." Simpson says there are risks, but her daughter has shown just how much she deserves this life. Simpson, by the way, is one of only 4 in the United Kingdom to receive this groundbreaking surgery. Still ahead, the president's decision to pull U.S. troops from Syria continues to draw controversy. What one top general has to say about it and the consequences.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Welcome back to the CBN News channel. The top U.S. general overseeing the battle against ISIS believes it's a bad idea to pull troops out of Syria. Joseph Vordel told CNN that he disagrees with President Trump's decision to bring U.S. soldiers back home and says he wasn't even consulted on the troop withdrawal. Vordel argues that Syria's regime is not ready to handle the threat of ISIS on their own. He's also warning that ISIS is far from defeated. ISIS once controlled an area the size of Great Britain across Syria and Iraq. The Defense Department says it is being pushed out and should be gone in a matter of days. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton reports on the effort to rid the region of ISIS and shows us how bleak things have become.
Here in southern Syria, within sight of the Iraqi border, U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces have set the stage for the last stand of the ISIS caliphate in that country. The fighting has been brutal, and while the SDF have tried to evacuate civilians from the battle space, ISIS has thwarted those efforts by using up to 10,000 civilians as human shields. For those who do escape, however, their ordeal is far from over.
So this is the Syrian Defense Forces checkpoint about a mile from what they call the forward line of troops, the front lines against ISIS that are off that direction. They have walked to this point after getting across ISIS lines. These women are in terribly bad shape. Some of them are wounded. The children are obviously dehydrated, malnourished, and sick. And they're receiving some kind of initial treatment here. The difficulty is that they've had a problem with many of these women actually wearing suicide vests, and they had 5 blow themselves up in one day. And so it's kind of a tense situation being here. They've already been checked by some of the female SDF soldiers, but we've still got to, just be careful and hope that these women love their children enough that they're not going to do anything stupid like that.
But between the front line and the nearest refugee camp, there's nothing but more than 200 miles of arid Syrian desert. No food, water, or shelter. Into this gap is stepping a group of Christians who make it their mission to travel to front lines around the globe and help people at their point of greatest need. They are the Free Burma Rangers, and their founder, Dave Eubank, has been working on the front lines in this region since 2015.
God is sending a mighty river into Syria of his spirit to change things. And I said, we're not a river, man, we're a drop. And he said, we're all drops in God's rain, and it forms a river. And you and I may not live to see the day of change, but it's coming, because God cares about these people.
All right, we're here to rescue. A former U.S. Army Special Forces officer, Eubank has seen much of war. So have his ethnic medics, who grew up in the conflict zone in Burma and have used their skills here to save many lives. From Dave's perspective on the ground, he says pulling out of Syria would be the worst thing the U.S. can do.
The military side, they've done a great job, and they're doing a great job. They need to stay and complete that, and stay to keep this space open. But humanitarian, there's a huge gap. The humanitarian gap from the front line to, for example, the nearest hospital, 4 hours. So you could be shot up there and then take a whole day to cross, another day to get here, then 4 more hours before you get to a hospital. So what the U.S. could do, practically, is set up field hospitals to support the Syrian Democratic Forces to improve their ability to save lives.
Those who arrive here are often gravely injured, like this taxi driver whose home was hit by a bomb as he and his family were sleeping.
At 3 in the morning, our house was destroyed, and there were 23 of us inside.
Only Salam, one son, and a daughter made it out alive. But even before that tragedy, life inside the Islamic Caliphate was unbearable.
Life was terrible in there. We had to carry water from far away, and we ate grass to stay alive. ISIS wanted money to let us leave, but we had no money, and finally, they let us go.
You might think it's crazy for a group of civilians to venture so close to the front lines, but this is no ordinary missions team or a group of tourists. These are highly trained medics and lots of prior military experience here that kind of makes them uniquely qualified to do the kind of work they're doing, addressing that humanitarian gap between the front lines where people are escaping ISIS and the first refugee camps, because there really isn't anything to help those people between those 2 points.
This is what we're made to do. We like it. This is the kind of work we can do. And we're not too afraid of the front line or fighting. And we have the skills, but all of that is only useful and only workable if led by God.
These men surrendered to SDF forces from the conflict area and are suspected ISIS fighters. Be that as it may, they are sick, hungry, and some were wounded. So the FBR team gave them water and medicine, and then Eubank said a prayer.
Lord Jesus, please bless all these men. Let them call on your name. In Mosul, we lost a lot of friends. I was wounded 4 times. I lost my translator. 30 guys I knew well were killed. 3 of my team were wounded. In the face of that, why would we help them? Because God sent us, and we know I'm not perfect. Those that'll raise their hand and say, pull me out, I want to pull them out. That's redemption. That's how things change. And this is the first time I said I forgive ISIS. That's God's work in my heart. That's God's work in my heart.
From southern Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
30 years after Russia pulled out from Afghanistan, lessons that the United States may want to consider with its presence there.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible, because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
30 years ago today, Soviet tanks rumbled across a bridge on the border with Afghanistan, marking the end of a bloody and brutal battle that killed nearly 15,000 Soviet troops and some 2 million civilians. Decades later, the United States finds itself in a similar quagmire, spending 17 years fighting the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and other terror groups in the country. Now President Trump wants to end America's involvement in Afghanistan and bring our troops home. Is this a good idea? For some answers, we turn to CBN News senior international correspondent Dale Hurd. Thank you for coming on. Quick lesson. Why were the Soviets in Afghanistan?
They were control freaks, and Afghanistan was on their border. They thought they could control it with their army the way they had controlled Eastern Europe. And they invaded in 1979, eventually had 100,000 troops in the country. They could never control the countryside, only the cities. It helped bankrupt the Soviet Empire, and they went home.
And now, 30 years later, the Russians are trying to recast their 10-year war as a good thing. They're trying to make this look like this was a highlight for their country.
Yeah, well, that's baloney. It was abject failure. It showed how bad their military was. And Afghanistan was worse after they left, because when they went in, the Mujahideen fighters were disorganized, fighting each other, and with the U.S. and the Pakistani help, were much more dangerous when the Soviets left.
We have been there now for 17 years. Are there lessons that we can learn from the Soviets? I mean, Afghanistan is known as the graveyard of empires. What is it about Afghanistan that is so hard to deal with?
Well, you can't fight a conventional war there, but let me lay on a lesson from World War II, and it's politically incorrect. Denazification. We made being a Nazi illegal after World War II, and that was our way of getting rid of the problem. And it's not politically correct, but the ideology of ISIS, the ideology of the Taliban is legal in a sense in this country, as long as you're not a terrorist. And so we can kill all the fighters we want, but the ideology is still there, and it's ready to reignite as soon as we leave.
And now we're talking about bringing troops back home. Is this a good idea? In fact, there's even talk about making peace with the Taliban. Is it time for the United States to pull out of Afghanistan?
Well, there are different considerations. On a military level, you have to have because we learned this in Vietnam. You have to have a specific, attainable objective, meet it, and then, don't get into this inflation of your mission creep. Meet your objective and leave. And I think that's what they would like to do. But how do you meet your objective when the fuel for the people that we're fighting is going to be there after we leave, ready to reignite again and create a problem?
Yeah, as always, Dale, thank you for your insights. We'll be back right after this.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
then you're going to love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Joining us now, CBN's Jessica Chaco and Dan Andros to bring us this week's trending stories from faithwire.com.
Well, Black Panther star Letitia Wright delivers a powerful message after receiving the coveted BAFTA award. Dan Andros, managing editor of faithwire.com, is here to tell us more. Dan, Letitia did not shy away from sharing her faith, did she?
No, she didn't. And this isn't the first time she's been outspoken about her faith. She, you may recall, a few months ago kind of talked about when Black Panther became a huge success. She talked about her faith and how she was literally depressed and wanted to quit acting. And it was just when she rediscovered her faith and found her identity in God. And so she's outspoken about that. And she sounds like she's very much on solid ground. And she said here, I identify myself as a child of God, and I can't get up here without thanking God. And so she reiterated that she saw herself a few years ago in a deep state of depression and wanted to quit. And the only thing that pulled me out was God, my belief, my faith, and my family. So really cool stuff that she's not shy at all in a culture, as we know, that isn't exactly the most faith-friendly culture. And she, even as a young artist, young actress, she has no problem being bold about her faith, and that's really cool to see.
Well, Letitia is not the only celebrity talking about their faith. In a recent interview, Katy Perry revealed more about her ups and downs and her spiritual journey. Dan, this isn't the first time she's come forward about her faith.
Yeah, and Katie's walk is definitely, a little bit different than Letitia's, and of course, all of our walks are different and unique in different ways. But Katie, I think a lot of people look from the outside and see her. I mean, her big first hit was called "I Kissed a Girl," and so you kind of see this rebellious phase from her. But she grew up a Christian. She grew up in a Christian home. Some of her first songs, she was a Christian artist before she kind of left that scene and went into the pop world. So you can see that that's her roots. That's what her upbringing was. And then you can see she sort of, went away from that. And then now you can kind of see maybe that God's pulling her back in. And she said on the latest album that she recorded, which is called Witness, that she said she never felt closer to God than during the recording of this album. She said that it was like 10 years of therapy in 1 week. So you see with Katie, you see like a lot of wrestling going on. You see a lot of searching. And so she's kind of still in that area. And so, I know it's tough in the Hollywood scene to be out in front of everybody to try to live your faith out like that. A lot of criticisms come her way. I think we would probably do best just to be praying for Katie that she would keep growing closer to God.
Thanks, Dan. You can find stories like these by visiting FaithWire on Facebook and on the web at faithwire.com. Back to you.
Thanks, guys. As Jessica mentioned, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Also, a reminder, you can contact us anytime by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again next time. From all of us here at CBN in the control room, in the studio, have a fantastic day, and God bless.